Hello everyone and welcome to the case series of Untitled IIM Ahmedabad. The idea behind this case series is to give the user a flavor of the different kind of cases they will face as they prepare for their consulting interviews. Across this case series, we have covered different types of cases such as profitability, market entry, growth, merger and acquisitions, and unconventional, to name a few. While the user prepares for their consult interviews, they should keep in mind to not only refer to these videos but also keep the casebook in hand parallelly, as these videos are reflective of one approach that the user might take while solving the cases. One should also keep in mind that there is no correct way to solve a case. There is no right answer or there is no wrong answer. It totally depends on the approach that the user plans to take as they go ahead and solve the case.
Hi, I'm Sonam.
Hi Sonam, I'm Ayushi.
Nice to meet you. So we'll just jump right into the case.
Sure.
So your client is in the consumer durables industry and they have been witnessing a decline in their profits. So they have hired you to find out the reasons for the same and provide recommendations as to how they can deal with the problem.
Sure, understood. So if I understand the case correctly, our client is in the consumer durables industry and they've been facing declining profits. And our job is to understand why this has happened and to suggest some possible solutions for the same.
Yes, that's correct.
Sure. Before we delve into this case further, I'd like to ask a few questions in order to better understand the situation. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead.
Sure. So first, the question that I have from my side is, by how much have our profits declined and since when?
So they have been witnessing this trend for the past 2 quarters, which is 6 months, and the profit has declined by around approximately 10%.
Understood. Got it. So I think it's very important to understand more about our client. So first, when we say consumer durables, what kind of products are we talking about?
So you can say that our client deals only in one kind of product in the consumer durables industry, which is washing machines.
Understood. Got it. And when we say washing machine, is there a range of washing machines that we're offering?
No, so there is only one type of washing machine, but there is a differentiation that there are top load and front load washing machines.
Understood. Got it. Which geography are we operating in?
So the client operates all across India. There is no particular state, region, anything of that sort.
Understood. And do we have any information if this decline in profits is limited to a particular geography or is that uniform across the country?
So again, the trend is uniform across the nation.
Sure. Next, I'd like to understand if this declining profits is a phenomena that's just witnessed by us, or is this an industry-wide trend and our competitors are facing similar issues?
So this trend is only particular to our client, and the competitors don't see such problems.
Understood. When we're talking about our customer segment, is it safe to assume that we working with more households, or are we actually dealing with businesses?
So we are dealing more with households. Our end customers are obviously households.
Okay. And where do we lie in that value chain?
So the client is actually a manufacturer of washing machines.
Sure. I think I have enough information to proceed ahead with the case. So I'd like to take 10 seconds to structure my thoughts better, and then I'd like to get back to you and take ahead.
That's perfect. You can take your time.
So, as I see it, profit is a function of revenue and cost. Do we have any information if our revenues have declined over the period or if our costs have increased?
So we don't see any particular issue in the cost side. Let's, for the sake of the case, jump deeper into the revenue side of the client.
Sure. So, revenue is a function of the number of units sold multiplied by our average price. Do we have any data that would allow us to understand if the number of units declined has declined, or the average price has declined, or both of them?
So the average prices have remained the same, but there is a decline in the number of units that are being sold in the past 2 quarters.
Got it. I'd just like to take 10 more seconds to understand the case.
That's fine.
Okay, so as mentioned before, our client has 2 kinds of product. One is top load and the other is front load. Is this decline in sales specific to a particular product, or is this uniform?
So it's across both the categories of products, both across top load and front load.
Understood. So I think in that case, I would like to analyze this case further by looking at it in terms of a consumer journey, as to how a consumer would approach the purchase of a washing machine. Does that sound okay to you?
That seems like a fair approach. Why don't you give it a shot?
Sure. I'll just take a few seconds, put my thoughts down, and then I'd like to get back to you.
Sure, take your time.
Okay, so if I'm thinking in terms of the consumer, then I think there are different steps in terms of how they go about the purchase decision. It flows from need, awareness, to accessibility, affordability, and finally consumer experience. So if it's okay with you, I'd like to go one by one in each of these areas. Otherwise, you can let me know if you want me to focus on a specific area.
So I'm not certain about the roadmap that we've drawn. So why don't you start one by one and we can see if we can find out.
Sure, I think that sounds like a fair approach. So first, focusing on need, that this would talk about if the consumer actually wants the product. But since we've already discussed the fact that this is not an industry-wide trend and our competitors are not facing a decline in profits, I think it's safe to assume that this is not an area that we should be focusing on right now. Do you think that sounds fair?
Yes, that seems fair.
Sure. So next, moving on, it would be the awareness. Awareness would directly relate with the fact if consumers know about our product, they know about the promotional schemes that we are running, and how does that compare vis-a-vis our competitors. So it's not just about the efforts we are putting in, but also what the competitors are doing. Do you think this is something that we should look into further?
No, I believe the client has been spending the same amount they have at the start of the year. So the promotional aspect of it has been the same, even the marketing spend has been the same, and their effects have also somewhat been the same.
Understood. Just to confirm, do you think this vis-a-vis our competitors has also remained the same? I just like to make sure that maybe the competitors have not increased their promotional spend in the recent times.
That's a great question, but the competitors' spend has also remained the same.
Understood. I think then it's safe to assume that this doesn't seem to be an area of concern either, and therefore I'd like to move further ahead in the chain that we discussed earlier.
That seems fine, yeah.
Sure. So the third aspect, as we discussed before, is accessibility. Accessibility relates to the fact how we are actually deciding to distribute our products. What are our distribution channel in order to best reach our consumers? So this would go directly from, since we are a manufacturer, it would go from who are we giving these products to, and how are they finally reaching our end consumers, that are the households. Can you help me understand that a bit better? Or if this is an area of concern we should be looking at?
So I think we might have something here. So the client, as mentioned earlier, is only manufacturer. So they push their products to the consumer through a distribution channel, which consists of, for the sake of the case, one primary distributor.
Understood. So through my basic understanding of the industry, what I know is that margins and the kind of incentives that we offer to the distributors is a key factor that determines our accessibility to end consumers. Can you help me understand what's the margin that we offer and what is the industry standard?
So we are not sure about the industry standard, but our margins are set at 4%. There is basically no industry standard as such.
Okay, I understand that might not be an industry standard, but do we have any information what our competitors, like our closest competitors, are giving to the distributors?
Yes, so the competitors have pushed up their margins, and it was earlier at 4% comparable to us, but now it's around 7%.
Understood. So this does seem to be a major area of concern to me, because in a highly competitive industry like in consumer durables, margins is a key deciding factor for distributors. And since washing machines are significantly expensive item, a 3% increase in margin can be a deciding factor for a distributor. Do you think it would be fair to assume that this is a major area of concern, or would you like me to look at the problem further?
No, I think we have reached to the crux of the problem. So there is a 3% parity between us and our competitors, and because of this, the distributors are not pushing our product as much and are preferring to sell the product of our competitors more.
Understood. And just so that we are sure, just so that we are able to understand the problem even better, can you help me understand that since we are using one primary distributor, is that a practice that's also followed by competitors, or are they also exploring other distribution channels that we have missed?
Yes, so we are using the same distribution channel, so even the competitors go through the same distributor network.
Understood. Thank you so much. I think I'll take a few seconds to summarize the case and maybe give some recommendations from my end.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so just a short recap of the case. Our client was an consumer durables manufacturer, and they've been facing a decline in profits over the last 2 quarters. Through a detailed analysis, we were able to figure out that this was because of a 3% difference in margins that we were offering vis-a-vis the competitors, and that's the reason why they were not pushing our products to the consumer. My recommendations would be segmented into 2 parts. One would be in the short term and the other in the long term. When we're looking at the short term, I think these would be immediate steps that we need to take in order to stop the bleed of our sales, and it can come in terms of monetary or non-monetary incentives to the distributors. It can be that we can increase our margins slightly just so that we completely don't lose out on our market share. It can also be in terms of non-monetary incentives, wherein maybe we're providing other incentives to distributors in terms of better packages, or maybe if they bought from us in bulk, maybe we're offering them a better rate. So I think these are some options that we can explore. And furthermore, in the long term, I would say that diversification of our distribution channel, wherein we can explore other channels through which we can maybe reach directly to the consumers through e-commerce websites, and where we can reduce our reduce the margins that we're offering. I think that would be a good approach to follow.
Fair enough. Those are some great recommendations. So I think that would sum up the case, and thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to meet you.
No worries.
Thank you.
Some of the few positive aspects of the case can be summed up as follows. To begin with, Clarifying the problem statement to ensure that the interviewee is on the same page with the interviewer is always a good practice. Ask the right amount of clarifying questions. Do not ask any redundant questions which do not add value to the case. Any further information required can always be clarified during the course of the case. A good MISI structure was followed by the interviewee, and this helps in not just eliminating your options but also maintaining a proper structure to your case solution. While breaking down revenue into number of units and price, the interviewee was cognizant of the fact that there are more than one type of products, and the number of units could have changed in any of those product types. Now, coming to some areas of improvement, there is always a scope to make the case more conversational. This can be done by taking buy-ins or asking the opinions of the interviewer from time to time. The case might get too complicated and long at times. In such situations, do give the interviewer a recap or a refresher of what all has been done so far. Always keep a calm, composed, and smiling face, even if you can't reach the solution. Sometimes a positive personality helps in leaving a good impression on the interviewer, even if the case might not have gone well. While frameworks are a great way to solve cases and sometimes might help you in difficult situations, do not make it too robotic in nature. Your interviewer wants to test your thinking and not your ability to follow a framework. Do not make it seem like you are following a framework blindly. Ask, don't tell. The interviewer's views matter. One should always ask them about their opinions rather than tell them what they are going to do. This also makes them feel more involved in the process of solving the case. It is always a good practice to summarize your case towards the end. Ask the interviewer if they would like you to do so in case they have not explicitly asked you to summarize your case before giving your recommendations. Technology plays an important role in almost all businesses today, and one can always earn some brownie points by adding a few recommendations on the technological aspect of the case. Always try to give your structure to your recommendations. Short term, long term is one way, but one could also recommend based on the level of impact, feasibility, time taken, and so on.